Yeah.
Pretty much. There we go. How's everyone doing this morning? It's good to see so many faces awake with eyes wide open. Because I don't know about you, but I only wrapped up about 10 minutes ago. No, everyone had a really good time at the ball last night? Very cool. Stacey in here? There she goes. Can we give her a round of applause? Absolutely fantastic. So guys, we are here for the reunion for the cast of Puffs. Are you ready? So, I have the honor of introducing them. So we're going to start with Julie. Julie is a biracial actress who was last seen off-Broadway in the Potter comedy Puffs. That's why we're here, in case you were confused. Or 7 increasingly eventful years at a certain school of magic and magic. The play was filmed live and is now available on iTunes and Amazon's. On Amazon's, with an S, still hungover. And Amazon. Other favorite credits include Mary Magdalene in The Mysteries, The Flea, and Juliet in Romeo and Juliet at the Actors Shakespeare Project. And she can also be seen and heard in numerous commercials and voiceovers. She has a BFA in acting from Boston University. She grew up in Paramus, New Jersey. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Julie Ann Earls. And the fun fact, in the back of the room, she told me she will be appearing next as Storm in the MCU version of the X-Men. Okay, I'm kidding. I just wanted to see what your reaction would be. But yes, see, now we know we can make that happen. This discussion we actually had. Yes, I did not deny it at all. Next, we have Zach. Zach, Zach has been playing Wayne in Puffs since the very beginning. Yeah, baby. He will be playing Wayne in Puffs right until the very end. And I got to see Zach on Wednesday, because Wednesday was the first time I'd ever seen Puffs. What took me so long? And it was awesome. So we're very glad to have him. He likes long walks in the park. I'm not making this up. This is what I was told before we started. He likes long walks in the park. He's from Richmond, Virginia. Went to school at UNC Chapel Hill. And fun fact, he actually has done a film with Daniel Radcliffe. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Zach Moon. And last but certainly not least, and I want to make sure we give him a very, very big round of applause, because without him, in no small part, we would all not be here again celebrating magic and the mysteries and the fun and the family. That is MISTI-CON 2019. Moderating this morning's panel is Mr. Clay Dockery.
Hello, everyone.
Aw, man.
What?
Nothing.
I don't know what's up. Sorry, if we were going to do a bit, I've got to prep first. All right. Oh, I know what it is. It's this. Yeah, I did not get Weasley to just... Okay, so welcome to MISTI-CON. Thank you so much for coming. Awesome. So just one note before we get started. Langston, who was also going to be with us when we were discussing this, is away at, you guys can tell.
He's at Comic-Con because he's like way too cool.
He actually works for Marvel, so
yeah, no big deal.
He's there in all of things.
You got a little reverb. Oh, so do I. Okay, cool.
He's at the end of the hall.
Yeah, there's too much magic in the room. We have to...
I think it should be okay. That's okay, it's okay. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I thought that it would be fun to kind of get started with a couple things about the show and kind of your roles in the show, and then we'll talk about your careers and stuff like that. First thing, a question to the audience here, which is, how many of you have seen Puffs the play? Yeah, all right, that's pretty great. How many of you have seen Julie Ann and Zach in Puffs the play? Fantastic. All right, so the place to start, I thought, would be kind of to get the idea of how this whole thing came together, since you were kind of there at that point. So, what was the first that you heard, the first time you heard that this thing was going to happen? When was that? What was the story behind it?
For me, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry. For me, it was actually Matt. We were hanging out in a bar, and Matt came up to me and was like, "Hey, I have an idea for a play, and I want you to be the lead." And I was like, "Okay." Sure. So that was the very first thing I ever heard about it, and then I know that he was on the train and just had the idea of like, "Wait, there was this battle at this school, and a lot of kids died," and kind of worked backwards from there.
Mine was less direct than yours. So Matt and I were friends, and Zach and I, from a show at the Flea called The Mysteries. And I had seen Matt's work in Kapowie Go-Go, also at the Pit, which I don't know if any of you know that show. Yeah. So I remember seeing that show and thinking, oh, like, it'd be so cool, like, because what was so lovely about that show was that it was duct tape swords, but the whole audience was on board. Like, that was theater magic. And I was like, oh, I'd love to be involved in something like that. So there I am, just like, wow. And then one day, Matt was like, oh, I'm doing a reading of this play. Like, do you want to read for this part? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Sure enough, I don't know, that was Matt's way, like, subtly auditioning me or something. Is that the truth?
He always had you in mind.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that though. And so we did the reading, and then I guess from then on, he was like, yeah, the part is for you. The part's yours. Oh.
Yeah, for the most part, Matt wrote it with all of the original cast in mind, which was kind of great because he was able to like write for our voices in a way that I think made it easier for us to do.
Yeah, we didn't have to act, you know.
So Matt Cox is the writer of Puffs and is also in San Diego, I believe. Yes, because he was on our discussion trying to get people here, and was like, yeah, I'd love to do it, except I'm at San Diego. So about that writing process, so did Matt have like a completed script and all of that stuff that you started with, or did you have input in the process?
Definitely, I know the first reading we ever did was only up through the beginning of year 4, was the first time we did a reading at the Pit, and that itself was like an hour and a half, so he knew that he had a lot of stuff to cut, because he still had to get to the end of the 7 books. So we definitely went through a lot of iterations. I know that we all, would joke around during rehearsals and stuff, and like some of that stuff he would be like, great, it's in the script forever. Other stuff he would be like, never say that again. So most of the things I said, but like I know the Free Willy monologue he rewrote like probably 40 times. Like he would just hand me his computer sometimes during rehearsal and go, okay, read this one. And then he'd be like, no. All right, move on to something else. And 5 minutes later, he'd be like, okay, read this one. So there definitely was a lot of different iterations of the script and a lot of rewrites, and like even up to like when we would switch theaters, he would do rewrites and do completely new things every time we moved and add things and subtract things, and yeah, always working on it.
About that, when you started with the show, it was supposed to be a very short-term, very kind of underground type of thing, right? So that was at the Pit, is that? Yeah. So kind of tell us about, so that was how you started, but then at what point did you learn that the show was because it's going to continue and move on to other theaters and then other like bigger and bigger off-Broadway theaters?
So it was supposed to be only 5 shows and at the Pit. And, what's so lovely about being a part of this was that the reason why the show is what it is today is because of the fans, because of you guys. Like, the demand was high, and so we kept on adding more shows, and so we ran for 9 months at the Pit when we started with 5 shows.
Wow.
And by run, I mean that it was sporadic too. It was like Tuesday at 11 o'clock, Saturday at 8. Like it was all over the map in terms of the show times. But every time we did it, it was sold out. And also in terms of the writing too, like if you ever saw it at the pit, the show you saw might be different from the next one we did at the pit, because we were like testing everything out like during that time.
Yeah, I think the first 2 performances, I actually came back as a ghost.
Yeah. Whoa. That's a throwback. That's some insider info.
Yeah,
like that was
only,
worth coming to the panel today. Hearing that.
Only about 80 people ever saw that version of the show ever.
It's me and Langston, and then Zach comes up behind us like going like this. And then Zach was like, no. Oh, Zach, Matt was like, no, I gotta cut you. So it ran for 9 months, and during that time, the producers that ended up putting Puffs on off-Broadway, they were eyeing it. So like we kind of had a sense like, oh, it may move on.
Yeah, we knew one of the producers from doing a show at the Flea, so he actually had seen some of us in shows before, and so he came to one of the first shows like in January or something after we had like started performances in December, and was like, I'm interested in this. So we had that maybe as an idea in the back of our minds, but also like we were all kind of like, yeah, but that'll never happen. So then when finally we found out a couple months later that we were going to move to the Electra, to the first off-Broadway spot, we were all just kind of like, whoa, this is insane. Like, and it all started, Irvin wrote an article, and all of a sudden we had like, he was one of our first supporters, and all of a sudden this article had like 10,000 shares on Facebook or something, and we were all looking at each other like, what the, this has more legs than we ever like imagined, and so it's been like a wild ride from there,
So how much did the show change with that move? Did you get more cast members? Did you get different set, different things like that?
We definitely, so the cast stayed about the same. We did, once we moved to the Electra, start actually getting understudies so that, sometimes people could take a day off. Or, get sick potentially. So we added like full-time understudies there. We actually, since we were able to be in one space, we were able to have some of a set, although it did have to be taken down after every show because we weren't the only show in that space. So Maddie, who did the set both for the Electra and for New World Stages, and in the film version, she created like a lot of these like cardboard cutouts that basically just like got elasticed to the sliding doors so that it wasn't just a plain gray door, so it actually had some texture, and so we actually had something to like interesting to look at the Electra, but it did have to get taken down and put away literally after every show, because there would sometimes be someone like waiting in the wings to get in there right after us. So that. Yeah.
And also, Evan was the Cedric in the pit, and due to union stuff and business stuff, he could not move on to the Electra, and so James Foey came on as Cedric, and he just came right on, and we adored him. And that's that.
Awesome. So were there any changes when you moved from Electra to New World Stages that were
that was probably the biggest one was that we could finally have a set that just stayed there because we were the only ones in the space. And so once Madeline had the freedom to actually do that, she was able to like design something that stayed there and was permanent instead of having to like pack it up every night, which was great. And like she was able to take over that whole space. You see all the stuff that she designed to put on the back walls and all around the theater, like all of those things are her design, which were awesome to be able to fill that space and make it our own for 2 years now.
Yeah, and what's also really lovely too is when we were at the pit, we'd be getting ready in the dressing room and be like, imagine like if this show went to New World Stages, like that'd be the perfect
that
place
was, like,
for
the
it.
pipe
Like
dream.
that was the actual dream. Like we would talk about that, and then that's where it went. And so when we found out, like it was literally dreams coming true.
Awesome. So I thought we would talk about the kind of plot of the show and your characters in the show for a minute. So as we said at the beginning, there were a lot of people here who have seen the show. There were a couple who have not. There are people that don't know the show. Yes. So just for the benefit of the people that might feel that way, if we kind of give them just a quick rundown of what the show actually is. And then I'll ask you a couple questions about your characters in life. There'll be spoilers for you, if that's okay, because,
Yeah, we can keep it spoiler free.
yeah,
Relatively.
relatively. Don't give away the big, big
Yeah,
yourself.
sure.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah.
Well, Puffs is the story of you know, sort of the lesser known and lesser cared for house, at least in terms of like what's represented in the movies and the books. And it's the story of Wayne, who's the character I play, who has these grand dreams of being like the hero and basically the Harry equivalent of like the Puffs. Only to find out that that's not necessarily his lot in life, as I think a lot of us find as we go through our lives and, you know, have these grand dreams of being the hero and whatever, and to figure out what it actually means to be like somewhere in the middle, and to accept that and to embrace that. So it's sort of his journey of like navigating that, watching like all of these events that we know from the books and the movies, sort of travel alongside them in a parallel fashion, and the story of all the Puffs who are part of that wild and wacky adventure. And on the way, he meets his best friends, Megan and Oliver, who are the trio of the Puffs.
Yes. So, what kind of development, you know, so you're Megan, so what did you know going in about this character and how did you wind up making this character your own?
When you said that, the first thing that came to my mind, also like funny things that like got cut from the script that are no longer there, was like at one point Megan's like 12 and is like smoking a cigarette. So like, yeah, remember that?
I don't remember
that. Yeah. So in terms of like who she was, like even though that didn't live on, like that energy definitely stayed in, you know? So she, I mean, you know, out of the gate, she was like goth and rebellious, you know, anti-Puff. And in terms of developing it, you know, my relationship with Xavier changed. That was something that definitely changed from the pit. I don't know if I'm answering your question. That's basically it, right?
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, and I don't know, I guess as we continue to work on the show, I think what was lovely about Megan's development is that she started off as this kind of just a rebel thing, and then she turned really, I think she became really well-rounded in that the point of her character is that she is many things. She has this like tough exterior, but she really loves her friends and is, you know, goofy in her own way, even though that's not at the forefront. And it just goes to show that like your house or you know, labels only go so far. You're multifaceted, and Megan is a good representation of that. Oop-a-doo.
Yeah, I know that, I mean, for me, it was a lot of Matt and Steve, who was one of the original producers and played Ernie and the male teachers, kind of being like, hey, you're the lead of the show. And I was like, I know, but they're the funny ones. Which is just, you know, in my career is not, you know, leading man is not what you see when you see me, which is fine, and part of the point of the show, I think. But that was definitely a learning process for me of being like, no, it's okay to like take center stage and like be that and more than I'm used to. So it was some of like them pushing me to do that, but it was also a lot of like looking at Harry and his journey and like seeing how we could find parallels in Wayne and like see where he's trying to do the same thing and where that fails, and sort of, you know, hit those points all along the way of, you know, the 7 years.
That's awesome. One of the things that I found really fascinating about the show is the way that it's definitely a parody, right? Like that's how it is able to exist, but also it has lots of really funny parodic elements, but it also has like a real undercurrent of heart. And so do you have any thoughts on how you kind of got that balance or how that got there?
I think it is there because it was always one of the main things that Matt and the creative team were after. I think that was always the point, was never to do something that was just like strictly a parody, and like we always wanted there to be some amount of like heart and something you take away from it. Because if it's just laughing, that's great and that's wonderful, but like if it's really gonna stick with you, and like the way that it has with a lot of people, which is amazing, is if like there's some like amount of heart there.
And I think Matt did a lovely job of, you know, it could have been just a parody, you know, and we're gonna make fun of this thing and this thing and this thing. But I think why the show works is that you fall in love with the characters within 100 minutes, like, which is just, you know, is a testament to Matt. And then by the end, it's like a Pixar Shyamalan twist, where you're like, wait, I thought that this was, you know, you just, it sneaks up on you and you're like, why am I crying? Like, why am I crying? It's definitely not what you expect. So in terms, it became more than a parody. And also I think why I'm so glad that the show has continued to grow and grow. I think it's that people go to it thinking, oh, I'm a Potter fan, let me check out this thing. And then they fall in love with the show itself, like regardless of the Potter aspect. Yeah. Although I'm sure that oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So, I wanted to have you talk for just a couple minutes about your kind of lives and careers outside of Puffs.
Oh, that's boring. No, it's really boring.
So, how did you get started in acting?
So my dad was an actor and a director. He got his MFA in directing from Columbia. And so I'm from Richmond, and he was did a lot of directing and acting when I was young, so I grew up like going backstage at all these shows. So I was hooked from an early age, and I remember applying to colleges, and he was like, I know I can't really tell you this because I did it, but you don't have to do this. And I was like, yeah, whatever, you did it, Dad, so I'm gonna do it too. So that was, 17-year-old me. And well, here I am still doing it, so that's something.
Yeah, similarly, the story goes that when I was like 4 or 5, I got on my grandfather's pool table and I started singing the I Love You song from Barney. And that's when my mom was like, I think I gotta put this girl in theater classes or something. Like, she loves to perform. And I've been acting and singing ever since I was little.
And Julie, when was it that you went on to other projects after?
So I left Puffs May of last year.
And what did you start doing when you?
It was time. It was my time to say goodbye, and I audition. I do commercials. I do voiceover. I'm trying to do more TV and film. So it was time to make space for those things to come through.
Excellent. Yeah. Do you have anything that you're already looking at doing when you're?
I don't have anything lined up at the moment. Still looking and seeing what'll be out there after August 18th, which is very sad. But also okay, time to move on, I suppose. But I audition for commercials a lot. I go after those a decent amount, and I once was in I had like one line in a movie that Daniel Radcliffe was also in, this tiny little film called Imperium.
I was gonna look it up tonight.
I know, right? You can see me in my one line that I got to say to Tracy Letts, who's if you don't know him, very famous playwright and actor. He was a very large man. It was a local hire because it actually filmed in Virginia. So I was able to get it because they were like, oh, we can get you for cheap. But I actually they were like, okay, go to the makeup trailer. And I walked in, so my scene wasn't with Daniel Radcliffe. I knew he was somewhere around, and I sat down in the makeup chair, and he's right next to me. And I was like, and he was just like, hey, I'm Dan. I was like, I know. But he was super lovely, super charming. He just was asking me about my life, and I was like, oh yeah. But people would find out that he was filming in the area because it was outside. It was kind of on the outskirts. It was outside of Richmond, sort of in the country. And people would show up to set wherever they were filming. And every night at the end of shooting, he would wait and sign and meet everyone that waited, every single person. And the night I was there, he had to run to some photo shoot or something. And he was like, okay, while I'm changing at the end of shooting, get anything that anyone wants signed, put it in a box. I'll sign it while I'm changing, because I'm not going to be able to stay. So, yeah, so that was one of those things. I was like, oh, and he's so nice. That's my fun little story about him.
Were either of you into Harry Potter before the...
Yeah, I was definitely... I grew up with it. I remember actually getting the first book as a present, you know, when I was like 11 or whatever, when they first came out. Someone gave it to me, and I got to the chapter where, in the first book, when Hagrid is knocking down the door, they've, you know, gone to the island or whatever, and I got scared and I stopped reading it. So it actually like, because I was like reading it at night and I was like, I'm scared. And I put it down for like, for a little while until people were like, no, these books are great. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to pick it up again. So from then on, I was a huge fan, you know, going to midnight releases and all that jazz.
Yeah, definitely love the books, grew up with them, went to some book releases midnight, saw all the movies. But what was really fun was rereading the books in, you know, as research as a true actor for Puffs. I gotta reread the books. Actually, it was really fascinating. I know, really tough research. That was really fascinating too, rereading the books again as an adult, having been away from them, well, like, you know, deep in them for, you know, 5 years or more. Yeah, as a young adult, that was interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. So I would like to open up for questions from anyone here. If you have a question, if you could come up to the microphone in the front, just where everybody could possibly hear. So anyone have any? Yes, come on up.
Do your worst. Don't actually.
So, what are your guys' songs?
I don't think it's on, James.
Wait for your moment.
Find your lane.
Hello?
Yes.
What are your Hogwarts houses, and did your relationship to Hufflepuff change after being in the play?
Yeah. So technically, well, I'm not. You're right. Technically, I'm Gryffindor. Woo woo! But I think in terms of my relationship to Hufflepuff, I mean, I would say that the cast would agree that I'm like pretty puffy. Like, if anything, like all the boys bully me, like, and make fun of me. And no, in a sweet way, not in a mean way.
We hope.
So actually, I'll tell you a funny story about that. No, what? No, because we went to Tacoma, Washington, and did a convention there, and it was like almost like the whole cast was there, except maybe like 5 people, and so Nick was there, okay? And you know, there's a whole long line of us. Like the first question I'm about to ask, I'm like about to go into the mic, and Nick just goes, he makes a fart noise as soon as I'm about to open my mouth. And that is the camaraderie of our cast, and that's why I'm a puff in that way. Okay, that's my answer.
I'm definitely a puff, and I had been sorted that way long before the show, and I was kind of like, yeah, okay, I guess. But then doing the show, like, and being with all these folks and how everything has gone definitely made me so much more proud and happy to associate myself with being a puff.
And I think the show speaks to a bigger thing, especially by the end, that like we're all puffs, like not to get cliche about it, but like we're all puffs in that we're the common people, you know, at the end of the day, if you fight in the battle or you don't fight, you know, that's what matters, like that the whole group is involved. That didn't make any sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it did actually make sense. More questions? Yes, right here.
Hi.
Hello.
First off, thank you so much for coming and
Oh my God, such a pleasure.
We're so happy to be here.
One of my favorite scenes is the scene where the Dementors come out and the puppet is like kind of peeking through and the narrator gets to kind of expecto patronum him away, the Dementors away. But my question would be, is if your characters had a Patronus, what do you think that they would be able to conjure? And if it's different from what you would be able to conjure,
Oh.
what would that be like?
There it goes.
She did her worst. That was the worst.
So the group sort of conjures the Free Willy whale at the end during the battle, which is one of my favorite little things that I don't know if everyone notices the first time through, but it's something that we added later on. I think we added that at The Electra? Or didn't, not till Memorial Day?
Other deep cuts. At one moment in rehearsal, we joked. We didn't joke. No, I don't even know why I said joke, because this is legitimate. We were thinking, you know what, we'll make Jessie the whale, and we're gonna carry Jessie.
This was during one of the first rehearsals for the Electra, and Jessie was on vacation, so we did this. So we did this without her in the room. We were like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do Jessie as the whale. We're gonna carry her across. And then when she got back from vacation, and we were like, okay, we're gonna do this, we were all like, no, we're not. What were we thinking?
So back to your actual question.
Sidetracked.
So, okay.
My actual one is an otter.
Yeah, Zach Moon, yeah. Oh man, I think when I did the test, I was like some sort of cat, which Langston says that I'm like very cat-like, because I'll be like, one moment I'll be like, I'll just be like so here, and then later on like, so I guess I'll say that for me, I don't know. And then you asking for our characters as well, right? I don't know, I mean,
I've always imagined Wayne's as the Free Willy Will.
Yeah, I feel like that's right.
But it just feels right to me.
See, I guess, you know, I don't know. Because I feel like actually Megan's would maybe be a cat too, but so I don't think maybe Julie Ann's is a cat. I don't know. What do you guys think? Frog? Yeah?
Rabbit.
Yeah. I don't know, I gotta think on it.
All right,
Sorry.
for next time.
Yeah, maybe like later on I'm gonna come up with something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Should we just start a line?
Yeah, just start a line.
Stack it up.
Come on down, make a line. Jody, come too.
Okay,
Uh,
so I'll give you a minute to think on it.
If you do have a question, go ahead and get in line. That way we'll go a little faster. We didn't start with that.
No, before we go, like, I want to take a video and we're all gonna do it.
Yeah.
I will say, I think Pops is my fiance's favorite iteration of Potter because he's actually sat through it twice, which I thought was very impressive for him. Like when we had the opportunity to come to filming and I asked him if he wanted to go, he's like, I'm taking off work right now.
That's awesome.
I was like, okay.
Where's he?
Oh, he's at home.
That big.
So actually I have two questions.
Shoot.
One is your favorite Zach Smith. And you cannot say the 27 dresses one because...
Yeah, no, totally. We're not gonna say that one.
Because that one is iconic, but it will
Right.
live on. So I'm looking for something that has gone, like one of those you had to be there moments. And then the second question, which I've also now blanked on, was, do you remember my
We can start with
question,
the first one.
We can start with the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
start with that one, then she remembers.
I know one of the ones that sticks out to me just because it was one of the first moments that I was just like taken so aback and like just flabbergasted on stage was Nick came out with something in his hand and I was like, what is that? And he was like, I found this. It's Cedric's heart. And he holds it out to me and he goes, do you want it? And I was so stunned because he had, like, I think it was the first time he used a prop, which he then did more often. But I was just there like actor brain going, I don't know how to react to this, that's my character, and without just completely losing it. So I think like Steve looked at me and was like, he's gone. So that's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, there's so many iconic ones from that Nick Carrillo, that gem. The one that comes to mind for me is one of our last nights at the Electra, speaking of props. Wayne has those birds that pop up. I don't remember this one. Nick put like the bird, like, all right, here we go, everyone. He put the bird like in his crotch, and then like unzipped his fly and the bird came out. And he was like, oh, I don't know, something about a spell turned my into a bird or whatever. That was like particularly memorable. It was just like, wow, we really did it. That was iconic. And also, there was this other famous show in which, at New World Stages, one of the drains above the theater got clogged or something, and so it was actually, there was water dripping from the ceiling while we were doing the show.
In the middle of this, in like center stage.
And somehow the show really still did go on. And we kept doing it with buckets on the stage, okay? And then Nick turned that into this thing during Zach Smith that someone turned his girlfriend, Jennifer Buckets.
The last name is a coincidence.
Coincidence.
Into a bucket.
Into a bucket. Yeah, those are some memorable ones.
Thank you.
Hi.
First of all, third or nothing. So we're talking about Puffs, which is all about the underappreciated characters in the show. Now, when it comes to the books, you said you're both fans. What do you think is the most underrated moment in the books?
That was good.
Look, I've run like 5 of these conventions. I have no idea what my answer to that question would be. It's hard. It's a deep question.
Well, what I will say, I mean, this is like so known at this point, but while rereading the books, I was like, yo, they would be nothing without Hermione. Like, without a doubt, like, how would the story continue without her being the brains of the operation? Let's see, I gotta think. Underappreciated moment.
Yeah, this isn't really.
Okay,
you got it.
No, only because, like, again, while doing my research as an actor for Puffs, what's hilarious that didn't kind of make it into Puffs is in the 6th year when they're all trying to learn how to apparate and like all the Hufflepuffs like can't do it, like an arm is there. We missed the boat on that one. Like, that was hilarious.
There are a million things. I always wanted the giant squid to make it into the show somehow. Because also, that's a thing they don't talk enough about in the books. There's just a squid in the lake next to where you're going to school. That's a lot.
It's a deep question,
What
Jody.
I will say, I mean, this is like so known at this point, but while rereading the books, I was like, yo, they would be nothing without Hermione. Like, without a doubt, like, how would the story continue without her being the brains of the operation? Let's see, I gotta think. Underappreciated moment.
Yeah, this isn't really.
Okay,
you got it.
Sorry. No, only because, like, again, while doing my research as an actor for Puffs, what's hilarious that didn't kind of make it into Puffs is in the 6th year when they're all trying to learn how to apparate and like all the Hufflepuffs like can't do it, like an arm is there. We missed the boat on that one. Like, that was hilarious.
There are a million things. I always wanted the giant squid to make it into the show somehow. Because also, that's a thing they don't talk enough about in the books. There's just a squid in the lake next to where you're going to school. That's a lot.
Alright, I got
Remember?
Yes. Okay. So you had a couple of Potter alumni come see the show, like Ivana, Chris Rankin. What were their reactions to the show? Did they have like a favorite moment that they like, or like a favorite like character or anything like that? I'm just very curious how they actually responded to the show.
They were both very positive. I know Ivana, like, we didn't get to talk to her very much. We got to take like a quick photo with her, but she seemed to really enjoy it. Chris, we actually met at the convention we went to in Tacoma, and got to hang out with like after he saw the show, because we spent time together and actually like were friendly with each other. And he's great. He's like one of the loveliest human beings. And he really loved it, so he had a great time. I know that like they went home and like watched it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they like sent a picture of them watching the film version. Yeah, so I know they went back and watched it again.
Any more questions? Yes, come on up. Nice.
You look familiar. Whoa.
So what are your guys' favorite moments to either act or like in the show to like watch from the sidelines if you're not in that scene?
I mean, my favorite, I won't totally spoil this, but my favorite thing to do is the white room scene towards the end of the show. Just because it's like, the most heartfelt moment, and like getting to do that with Steve, who's been like one of my good friends for like 6 or 7 years now, since we met at the Flea way back when, 2013, 2012 maybe. So getting to do that with him every show is such a blessing. So that's like my favorite, and like always means a lot to get to do that scene.
And that's the Pixar Shyamalan twist moment of the show. No, because like, you know, having been in it, I've only seen the show until after I left. And so I've seen it like 3 times maybe, like I'm in the audience just, you know, experiencing this thing. And when that scene comes along, like that is, makes the show what it is. So watching from the sidelines, for a long time when we were at the Electra, I could watch the Zach Smiths, which was always a joy. But then when we moved to New World Stages, that's the moment when I'm taking off the black lipstick that's smudged all over my face. So I would miss that, and I would just listen. And then moments to do, I would always love, you know, doing letters as Megan and doing the serious joke. Because that was like, that's like it was a game every time doing the show, because like depending on the audience, I'd play it differently. Like if the audience was really jamming, like I could milk that moment real long, real long. If the audience wasn't jamming, like we're gonna go right past this, you know, so I would say that moment.
Yeah, I think it was funny, we were realizing this a little while ago, is that actually like, of the original cast, the only 4 still doing the show are the ones who are there for Zach Smith. Which I think might
That's
be,
why.
like, yeah, I think is a little bit, because that is one of the things that keeps the show fresh and hilarious for us every time. So I think we realized that like a month or 2 ago, and we were like, oh yeah, it's just us 4. It's probably because it's a different show every night because of that. So that's always a blast, and always keeps me on my toes. Yes.
Hello. I'm small, I'm sorry. Okay, so you both mentioned that you've done theater for a while, and being a part of Puffs, as the popularity of Puffs has grown, how have you been recognized more, and how do you feel about people just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god?
It's a very...
Zach got recognized waiting for the train to come here.
Actually, that's true. At Grand Central actually this morning, when I like had my coffee and I was like, I'm not awake yet. I was like, you're in Puffs, right? I was like, what? Yeah, that is when it happens. It happens when you're sweaty on the subway. No, it's been crazy. I mean, like, I remember the first time at the pit, there was a group of kids that we came out and they asked for autographs, and I was like, sorry, what? Just like that was such a new experience of ever having done that, and now like we've done it a lot, and it's crazy. Like, and when people like stay after the show and like want to take pictures or like do autographs or recognize you on the street, it's like so surreal. It's really it makes my day every time though. It's really wild.
Yeah. It's a joy because you guys are lovely, like so fun, and
yeah, it's also like one of the best fandoms around.
Yeah.
So.
For sure. One moment that was like particularly like, wow, I was actually on a flight to Dublin, and did I tell you this? Now we're all learning something new together. So, like I'm getting up out of my seat, and there's a kid in front of me on the plane that kind of like looked at me, like gave me like a double take. I was like, okay. And then as we were walking down, like getting off the plane, he was like, oh my God, were you Megan Jones and Puffs? Like, this was in Dublin. He was American, so I guess I'll give it that. But I was also like super like, whoa, I'm not even in the States. And that was...
That's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was like, what? And then also, I don't know, I also ran the social media for Puffs while we were in it. I don't know if any of you followed the shenanigans during that. That actually means a lot to me. As Zach would know. Like, they asked me to do it, and then little they know, it's like, this is my thing. And I like, became very silly about it. And so I guess now some people still follow my own Instagram, and someone stopped me in Williamsburg too one day, and like, but what was funny was that he didn't go like, I know you from Puffs. He was like, I follow your Instagram. I was like, what? So it's silly. It's just a silly time. It connects us. It's great.
Yeah, actually, so speaking of, Matt and Steve and Langston are at San Diego Comic-Con, and they actually just ran into someone who was dressed as Wayne just randomly in the convention. Yeah, he had the Wolverine t-shirt with the badger on it. So they texted me that picture yesterday. I was like, that's insane.
Yeah, like getting recognized, sure, like wow, interesting, cool, silly, but people cosplaying as our characters will always be mind-blowing. Like,
Yeah.
I always say, like, I could play Hamlet one day, but no one's coming cosplaying as Hamlet. Like, someone's coming cosplaying as Megan News, I'm like, that's fucking badass.
All right, so we have a few more minutes. Are there any more questions? Yes. John Rosenthal!
Also, part of the show's success is due to this man, always bringing people to the show. Yes.
As I said, I just want more people to see it. Especially I got like 17 days left, I think, or 17 days. How dare you? This question's for Julianne. What was your favorite of Steven's Slytherin superlatives?
Oh boy.
So for anyone that doesn't know, Steve gets to improv one moment where he like describes what the snakes are, and Matt decided one day, it didn't used to be in the script, he used to just be able to make it up, but Matt one day was like, you know what would be funny? This goes back to bullying Julie.
But he actually wrote it into the script,
Yeah,
okay?
so that's actually part of it, that she has to say whatever he chooses at the end of the show too.
Yeah, so kind of like during Leanne's little speech about the houses, Steve will, like, you know, everyone's like, whether you're this is this, or one line that he would always say is like, throw white wine.
Students always look like they're about to throw a glass of white wine in their face.
So that moment, like, he can make up whatever. The one that was like, when he said, I was like, you got, and also I'm on stage when he says it, so if anyone ever like would catch me, they would see my eyes go, oh my God, how could you? One time he went, snake, snake, snakes, oh baby snakes, 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 oh baby snakes. That's how long it was. And he sang it, okay? And so at the end of the show, when I go to, you know, whether you're a brave or a smart or a puff or snake, 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 like everyone was like on the wings, like waiting to hear me say this. For sure, I like definitely cracked. I was like, can't believe I'm saying this right now. Probably that one.
Yeah, that was.
And, yeah, actually, Maddie's making us. Is it a sweatshirt? Yeah, it's a sweatshirt of inside jokes from like the dudes. Like we're all like, oh my God, there's so many jokes. And one of them on there is snakes, 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 so baby snakes. Takes up like half the sweatshirt.
New baby shark.
Yes.
Yeah, shoot.
How do you feel about the idea of high schools and kids around the country?
Seeing pictures on social media of like high schools and middle schools putting on the show is like, makes your heart melt. It is so cool. Like I think someone was telling me that there are like 58 requests in for productions around the country, which is insane. Yeah, so from seeing like middle schools and high schools to like professional theaters doing it and just like seeing all these people like enjoying it and getting to get it out there to even more people is just awesome. Like it's really mind-boggling to think like where this started and to like how many people are gonna see this show now. Yeah. It's insane.
And all the middle school Zach Smiths, like hilarious.
Yeah, I need if anyone sees, I need videos.
Yeah.
Any more? Yes.
You don't want Mrs. Black at a microphone, do you?
All right, Irvin, let's do this.
So much of the show is based on the trio and their chemistry and their friendship. And so it was you two and Langston doing that for hundreds and hundreds of performances. What was it like when an understudy was on, or when Langston and Julie left? How do you sort of adapt to doing that with a different trio?
I mean, like, the three of us getting to do it together for so long, also, like, so much of the starting of the show was, like, us doing, like, interviews and stuff, too, together, so we, like, built up this rapport together that I think is really special and, like, we'll always get to have, which is wonderful, and, like, it is so much fun. Like, I had such a great time with the two of them. But then, like, yeah, whenever anyone else would go on for them, or like now that they both left the show and it's new people, it's this weird learning curve of like, what are you doing? Okay, I'm gonna do this instead. So it takes some time to get used to, for sure. But like the folks like Reggie and Sonia who took over are both really, really wonderful people, yeah, and they're both very talented. So it's like, so it was also like, as hard as it was to like move on, and it's, you know, never quite been the same, it's also like, oh, these people are great and really talented, so it's, you know, also easy in a certain way to like sort of get used to them, and it's just it just makes a different energy, which is, you know, not worse or better or anything, it's just, you know, change.
Yeah. Some more insider info. When we first started rehearsing the show, Steve was like, to me, Zach and Lynn's like, so you know what you guys gotta do, right? And we're like, what? He's like, you guys gotta go get drunk together. Or like, you know, just like do something like get to know each other. And what that was like, we got Little Caesars pizza. I was living in Washington Heights. We went to my like drab apartment and we watched the first movie together. And Legs had never seen it. And so, you know, we were like laughing because, you know, that movie came out so long ago that he was like, what is this, like Windows 97 screensaver? Like, it was like flying through the air, you know, Legs is so hilarious. And so like that's how our friendship started, getting to know each other. And when we were doing the show, you know, of course, it's like we know each other so well, and we were able to play off each other. And Jake is the main male understudy, so he would either go on for Zach or Langston. And like, Jake's delightful as well, but he's also a grade A weirdo. So the show would be totally different, but in its own way. And it was, yeah, just like, that's live theater for you as an actor and as an audience member. You really never do see the same show twice because the energy is different every time depending on who's on stage and who's in the audience. It's an experiment every show. These chemicals mixing together. Me, Jake, and Zach is going to be a totally different show and you're going to see new things and like hear new things. And Jake's a weirdo.
Is the main takeaway. Do we have one last question? Oh, we can take both. We can take you both. Come on down. Come on up to the.
Come on down to the Price is Right.
$4.99.
So, hi.
Hi.
How do you feel your character's super objectives maintained or changed from the beginning of year 1 to the end of year 7?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. Digging deep.
I think for me and for Wayne, it's definitely like the journey of like wanting to be this, you know, superhero and like the hero of the story and whatever, and to like the realization that I think we all go through in life of like having to be like, oh no, I'm okay with, you know, not being that, but still like being proud and like excited about what I am doing. So I think that's definitely a life lesson that was fun to learn along with the show, because I think it's something that, you know, everyone struggles with to a certain degree. Yeah.
Megan's objective definitely, at least years 1 to 3, is like, who am I? Am I this thing? Or I'm going to try this thing. I'm this thing now. And I think midway through the whole school experience, she's like, oh, but I'm this. And then when she meets her mom, she's like, you're not even that either. She has to learn that, again, like kind of like what I was saying, like she's her own thing. Like she's her own thing, and you can't put it in a box. So I would say that's how her journey goes in the play.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Proud Hufflepuff, so
Yeah.
thank you so much for helping share that with the rest of the world. So finally they understand how great Hufflepuffs really are. Okay, and my question is that since both of you are such fantastic actors, if you could be in any other Broadway play, on Broadway or off Broadway, whether it's playing now or in the past or will be playing, what would it be and which characters would you play? Wow.
Do you have an answer?
I love the show Waitress. I think the Waitress is beautiful. and you said it doesn't have to be on Broadway right now, right?
Anytime.
Yeah. Another show that like I did a scene from this play, and I now saw something else. This play in college, which was Crippled Inishmaan. Like Helen is also very similar to Megan Jones, so we'll say that. And also, I did Joan of Arc when I was in college, and I was like, yeah, that's my jam. So clearly, like, young female heroine that's fucking badass is
When I was younger, I always wanted to be Seymour in Little Shop. I can't sing well enough to do that ever.
It doesn't matter,
But I can still dream. And I just saw this, just coming to mind because I just saw it recently, The Ferryman on Broadway. And the lead in that would be really, really fun. It's a great show if you haven't seen it.
Also Hamilton, because, you know.
Well, Mika, come on. This is really the last one.
Hi. Okay, so obviously Puffs is a very high action, high energy show. There's a lot of running around, a lot of motion on a small stage. Were there any wacky mishaps or glorious accidents on stage? And give us a great story.
How much more time do we have?
This isn't actually a mishap from on stage, but I'm just remembering the story and it makes me laugh. But it was actually a backstage thing that it was right after we transferred to New World, and so we were still running around trying to figure out like where to go, and like still, even though we'd done the show at the Electro, the blocking changed when we moved, so we were all like, and when we rehearsed at New World, we were still doing shows at the Electro, so we were learning new blocking while still doing the old blocking. So our brains kind of went for a little while. But early on, so I was doing one of my shirt quick changes, which are relatively fast, and I like still didn't know how much time I had, so I was still freaking out about it. And I go over, and James was standing on like the little ladder that's there with his phone on, like videotaping me, and I was like, what's going on? I don't have time for this. And so I didn't notice that behind the costume rack was Ellie, and she just emerged like this and scared the living bejesus out of me. They thought I would see her long before she emerged, but I was distracted by James there, and I was freaking out. And so, like in my haste and like freaking out, I went, I don't have time for this, and like yelled at them backstage because I was just freaked out. And like James videotaped the whole thing, and I was like, you better delete that. Which, in the heat of the moment, I wanted him to. In retrospect, I wish he hadn't, because I would love to see that video now. But unfortunately, it's lost to just our memory of time.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh man.
There's a lot of like, I have to hold the curtain here for someone while they run through, and then I step here, and like it's this weird little dance backstage. And sometimes, and when swings or understudies go on, it is the moment of you have to go like, and then someone will run through and they'll go like, okay, yeah, don't go there. Trying to think of any others. You blanked.
Yeah, but there was just, yeah, there are definitely moments that happen.
There was another time at the Electro where, when we were sharing the space with other shows, they had rigged this prop, like light bulb, that like went on a pulley up and down, and it was like right center stage.
You said this is one of our last shows there.
It was towards the end.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but like it's just important context that we're getting ready to leave this space and like
move on to this other like
ghosts
cool
of the space, like shit started happening. So go ahead.
So Cedric James came out and was doing the opening speech of like, welcome to the Puffs, and this light bulb just goes boink.
Like a spider, like emerging
like
from the ceiling,
like 6 inches from his head. And so we're all just staring there, like trying not to laugh at him. And so so backstage, someone finds where the pulley is and like slowly pulls it out.
So as the show was going on, it's like, like it kept on kind of like coming in and out.
Because it kept falling down, so we were like, well, I guess it's good that we're leaving this place.
So much weird stuff happened. Like those last 3 shows were the weirdest shows. Like that happened. Someone brought like a baby to the show.
Oh, yeah.
So like it was like during the show, a woman was in the 2nd row and answered her phone. Was like, yeah, I'm at a play right now. Kid you not. Like we're like, and also like at the watch her, like, the audience is right there, so we're like, see her. Like, it was,
Oh yeah, if you're ever
bananas.
wondering, in New World Stages, I can see all of you in the audience.
Yes.
So if you're doing something, I know about it. All right, well, it is all the time we have for the panel. Thank you both so very, very much.